So what does it have to do with? So first of all, what stimulates this system? Or what's the purpose of it? Okay, but what situation starts everything up? When would you expect to see this? So you all haven't gone over that yet? I really haven't gone over it. I just put this out there. So renin, I said here you'll need to know its overall purpose, the renin-angiotensin aldosterone system, how it is activated, and the effects on the body. So renin is an enzyme secreted by the kidney cells of the kidney. So the kidneys secrete renin. The cells are stimulated to secrete renin when what? When blood pressure or blood volume decrease. Okay, so when there's a decrease in blood pressure or decrease in blood volume. Remember what blood pressure and blood volume, how they work directly. So what type of problem would be going on in an individual, maybe, to cause their blood pressure or blood volume to decrease? Right. So anything that would cause hypovolemia, right, would cause blood pressure to drop, blood volume, and therefore blood pressure to decrease. What are some real life situations? Bleeding. What else can cause that? Fluid loss. What is that called? Like dehydration. Okay, so situations like that. So that's kind of what you should be thinking in terms of this renin-angiotensin aldosterone system. The system's purpose is to elevate blood pressure and blood pressure so that the blood is circulated effectively. So in certain situations that assistance would be needed to maintain life, actually. Okay, so a blood enzyme called angiotensin converting enzyme converts angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. And angiotensin 2, I'm going to go back over this on that flow chart in a moment, but angiotensin 2 is a potent vasopressor, causes vasoconstriction. So anytime you see vasopressor, those are drugs or chemicals that cause blood vessels to constrict. And so why would you want blood vessels to constrict if blood volume and blood pressure are low? That's going to do what? Right, so constricting blood vessels increases pressure. Okay, so that's why the angiotensin 2 is needed in that situation. Angiotensin 2 also stimulates the adrenal cortex to release aldosterone. You all remember aldosterone? That's a hormone that does what? You all remember that? Was that on your list? Aldosterone? List of hormones? So aldosterone stimulates the kidney to reabsorb, key in on those, reabsorb sodium and water and to excrete potassium. Okay, so here we are in the kidneys. So the aldosterone is going to stimulate the kidneys to reabsorb sodium and water. First of all, what does that mean? Right. So we know that the kidneys control what leaves and what comes back into the body. So the aldosterone will stimulate the kidneys to reabsorb sodium, and just about any time sodium is reabsorbed, water is going to follow sodium. Okay, so that's one of the things you should get out of the chapter on fluid and electrolyte balance, that sodium pulls water toward it. Okay. So basically, I'm just trying to make sure you understand what I mean when I say sodium is reabsorbed. What does that mean? Taken back into where? Okay. So the kidneys, what do the kidneys do? Right. So filter, blood comes through the kidneys. If there's a buildup, if you all listen to the fluid electrolyte chapters, what the kidneys' job is to make sure that blood has the perfect concentration of all of the ions, all of the electrolytes, fluid. So if anything is higher than it should be, then there's usually mechanisms for the kidney to get rid of those items through urine. Okay, so some things that go into the kidneys come back out of the kidneys and stay in the bloodstream. So think of it in terms of the kidneys are able to push salt back into the blood instead of making it go out in urine. Okay, so when I say reabsorb, it's important to understand what that means. So aldosterone tells the kidneys to reabsorb sodium. What that means is send sodium back into the blood. Okay? Now, the whole situation starts because what happens? The RAAS system, what stimulates it? Low blood pressure. So think about why the kidneys would want to reabsorb sodium in that situation. Exactly. Yes. Exactly. So all of those. So that's what I want you all to start thinking about things. Don't just memorize those words, but think, okay, why would aldosterone tell the kidneys to reabsorb sodium when blood pressure is low? Sodium goes into the blood, and as you all said, water follows it into the blood. What does that do to blood volume? It increases it. So the whole purpose of the renin-angiotensin aldosterone system is to increase blood pressure or keep it from dropping too low to a point where it could be fatal. So we need blood pressure to stay up at a certain point.
So aldosterone is similar to ADH?
In a sense, yeah. They're slightly different in that aldosterone causes the excretion of potassium. Okay? So aldosterone tells the kidneys to reabsorb sodium and water. Water follows. But aldosterone also causes the excretion of potassium. And why would that be important also? Well, because remember, the electrolyte concentration in the blood has to stay very close to where it is. So if you're adding an electrolyte, it makes sense to pull one out, or you're going to have an increase in what? That old word, osmolarity. Did you all get the osmolarity concept? All this ties in together. So getting rid of one ion kind of helps prevent the osmolarity from changing too much. Okay. Now, so the RAAS overactivation, so I guess this system can activate too often. So you have the renin, so if renin just starts to be secreted, then the system goes, and it's going to increase blood pressure. So what this is saying is this system is implicated in the high prevalence of hypertension among African Americans. Okay, so drugs called ACE. So we did see angiotensin converting enzyme, referred to as ACE. You ever heard of an ACE inhibitor? So ACE inhibitors prevent the production of angiotensin 2 and therefore prevent the release of aldosterone. So it's a sequence of events that has to happen, and if one of those events is blocked, which is what ACE inhibitors do, then you don't get the vasoconstriction and the sodium reabsorption, so the blood pressure does not increase. And then, as you mentioned, ADH is very similar. So all of these are kind of working together to maintain blood pressure. And what this tells you is how important blood pressure is then. Because there's so many backup mechanisms to make sure blood pressure does not drop. So if blood pressure drops too low, then everything just stops, basically. Okay? So ADH works by allowing the kidneys to concentrate urine by causing the collecting duct to become more permeable to water, thus allowing water to be reabsorbed instead of excreted. So here you have the water being returned back to the bloodstream. Okay, so ADH has an effect on the kidneys, but the effects are more with the retaining of water than any of the electrolytes. And a couple of terms, diuretics. Many diuretics are caluretic. That is misspelled. Caluretic. Just like diuretic. So what is the difference between a caluretic and a natriuretic? Natrius sodium. Caluretic is referring to potassium. So those ions, what about them? So what does a natriuretic drug do? Right. Causes the kidneys to release or excrete sodium in the urine. So send out more sodium. So what would a caluretic drug do? Loss of potassium, right. So is aldosterone, so remember what we said about aldosterone, would it be a natriuretic or a caluretic or both? So what does aldosterone do again? It gets rid of potassium. And what about sodium? It reabsorbs sodium. So aldosterone is a caluretic. Good job. Okay. And where's my picture? I like that picture. Do you all have a picture?
Is it this one?
Yeah. That is it. I don't know why it's not showing up here. Oh, there it is. All right. So everything I just mentioned at the first part of the sheet before, you have the angiotensinogen. So remember, angiotensinogen is inactive until it mixes or binds with renin. So renin activates angiotensinogen, causing it to convert to angiotensin 1. Okay, so the picture, again, I know a lot of students just look at that and say it's just too busy, but it helps you, for some people, looking at that can help them remember the steps involved and what stimulated what and how things happen. So angiotensinogen comes from the liver. It's constantly produced, but until it's activated, it's not going to have an effect. So what sets this whole system off again? Just making sure you all remember. Low blood pressure, low blood volume. Okay, so really low blood pressure is the main factor that starts this process. So the low blood pressure, so you look under the liver, the picture under the liver, you have low blood pressure. So what that's saying is under conditions where blood pressure is low, the juxtaglomerular cells, you all don't have to know that, but that's what that is. Certain types of cells found in the kidneys produce renin. Okay, so renin is an enzyme, remember that. And what does renin do? Exactly. So it activates angiotensinogen and converts it to angiotensin 1. So now what happens to angiotensin 1? So angiotensin 1 is now circulating in the blood, and right, so that enzyme ACE And what does the A stand for again? Yes, angiotensin 1 converting enzyme. So in the flow chart, you see angiotensin 1 in the plasma, and then here comes the ACE enzyme, and that converts angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. And now you can see all the effects that angiotensin 2 have on the body. And all of these effects are going to increase blood pressure and or blood volume. So look at the first one, the arterioles. So remember we said angiotensin 2 has what effect on blood vessels? Vasoconstriction. So you see vasoconstriction, angiotensin 2 stimulates vasoconstriction, which does what to blood pressure? Increases blood pressure. Okay, so angiotensin 2 also is the control center in the medulla. Remember, the medulla has the cardiovascular control center, which stimulates the increase and decrease in heart rate. So angiotensin 2 then obviously will increase the heart rate. So anytime you increase heart rate, what effect does that have on blood pressure? It increases blood pressure. Okay? Angiotensin 2 also stimulates the hypothalamus to secrete vasopressin and also stimulates the thirst response. Okay, so all of that is intended to increase the amount of water reabsorbed. And finally, the adrenal cortex releases aldosterone, which has what effect on sodium? Pulls sodium back into the blood, reabsorption of sodium, and also water is reabsorbed, and that's going to have what effect? Increasing blood volume and also blood pressure. How do y'all like that? I know it's real busy.
It makes sense.
But exactly.
Do it on my own.
Yeah, because you can see everything happening just on that chart without memorizing just so many words. Okay, that's why I added that there. All right, so if y'all can answer these questions down here, you're good. What physiological change activates the renin-angiotensin aldosterone system? Low blood pressure, low blood volume. Good. Where is angiotensinogen produced? The liver. And where is it sent after it is produced? Blood. Blood plasma, so blood. Okay. Where is renin produced? Kidneys. What stimulates its production? Low blood pressure. What effect does renin have on angiotensinogen? Good. It combines with angiotensinogen to convert it to angiotensin 1. Okay, another way that could be asked, what converts angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1? And these are all questions you could see on the final. We're very similar to them. So if you're just writing down the answers, make sure you understand why they are the answers is the key. What converts angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1? Renin, right? Mm-hmm. What is ACE? Good. Angiotensin 1 converting enzyme. Where does it come from? So angiotensin converting enzyme, and you all don't really need to know that. It comes from the blood vessel endothelium up there. You can see it there. But I wouldn't ask you that. Just saying if you were paying attention to the chart. Okay, where does it come from? And what effect does it have on angiotensin 1? So ACE, angiotensin 1 converting enzyme, activates or stimulates angiotensin 1 to convert to angiotensin 2. So what converts angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2? ACE. What effect does angiotensin 2 have on blood vessel diameter? Constriction, good. What effect does angiotensin 2 have on blood pressure? Elevation, great. What effect does angiotensin 2 have on blood volume? Increase, good. What effect does angiotensin 2 have on aldosterone secretion? Increased. What effect does aldosterone have on sodium reabsorption and blood osmolarity? Okay, so sodium reabsorption increases by aldosterone. And how does this change in blood osmolarity affect blood volume and pressure? So remember did we go over osmolarity? But it's on the integrity, yeah. Any questions on that? Because it's important for you all to understand what we mean by osmolarity. Blood osmolarity. Anybody want to help me out there? So what am I talking about when I say osmolarity? Blood osmolarity increases. What does that mean? That would be a result. But what do I actually mean by saying the osmolarity has increased in blood? So it's going to cause water to move, but the why is water moving? It's kind of what I'm getting to. So yes, as Leslie said, if I say blood osmolarity increases, all I'm saying is that the concentration of dissolved substances within blood is increasing. You all need to go back and listen to that a few times if you didn't get it. So that's that integrity session. Okay? So increasing blood osmolarity means I'm just making it more concentrated. Okay? So with aldosterone, since sodium is being reabsorbed at a greater rate, would that have any effect on osmolarity, blood osmolarity? It's going to be more concentrated, so what effect does it have on osmolarity? It increases osmolarity, okay? So whenever osmolarity increases, what happens? Whenever salt concentration increases in one compartment, what happens? Water follows, okay? So that's kind of what I'm asking here, that you all need to understand this, really understand this. So what effect does aldosterone have on blood osmolarity? It's going to increase blood osmolarity because it's increasing the concentration of solute, meaning sodium, in the blood plasma. Okay? So, and really it goes back to what you all learned about solutions in Biology 103. A solution is made up of two parts, two components, right? The what? Solute and solvent. Okay? So osmolarity has to do with how much solute you have dissolved in that solvent. Okay? So if you have more solute dissolved in the solvent, then it's more concentrated. It has a higher osmolarity. Okay? And what we know about that is whenever there's a higher salt concentration somewhere compared to another place, so if we're saying body tissues here, blood here, water can go between the two. If blood has a higher osmolarity than the tissue fluid, then which way will water go? From the tissue to the blood, or from the blood to the tissue? That's kind of what it all boils down to. You all need to understand that thoroughly. Okay, one more time. So blood has a higher osmolarity than the tissue. Okay, and if you read the fluid electrolyte session, you know that water moves between compartments. Okay, so where will water move if blood has a higher osmolarity than tissues have? So fluid would move from the tissues into the blood. Why? Because it follows sodium. So wherever there's a higher salt concentration, solute, whatever the solute is, could be glucose, anything dissolved in blood, contributes to its osmolarity. So if you increase the amount of dissolved stuff, water is going to come into that compartment by osmosis. Okay? Remember osmosis? The movement of water from what? From high concentration of water to low concentration of water. You could get easily confused because I said the osmolarity or solute concentration is high in the blood and low in the tissues. So you may think, okay, that's going from low to high, right? If you're looking at it the wrong way, but we're talking about water concentration. If solute concentration is highest here, then water concentration is going to be what? Lowest there, right? Okay. If you all don't get that, I'll go over it with you. Okay, so how does this change in blood osmolarity affect blood volume and pressure? So the whole thing started because blood volume and pressure were low. So after all of these steps, blood osmolarity increases. How does that change blood volume and pressure? Water's going there, right? So water will go into the blood, increasing blood volume and pressure. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yep. There you go. And they have to, and the salines have to be an exact concentration too, because that'll throw things off as well. Alrighty.